I never imagined a poor boy's piano melody could break my heart. A lesson in kindness. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with summer heat, and shadows danced beneath the trees. I was walking home, my mind racing, when the first note struck. It was a haunting sound, fragile yet powerful, rippling through the stillness. It stopped me in my tracks. Who played so beautifully? I looked towards the abandoned lot where the music came from. There he was, a boy, no older than 10, seated at a battered piano, its keys yellowed and chipped. The boy's fingers moved like they belonged to someone else. The melody climbed high and dove deep, reaching into the cracks of my heart. He wore ragged shoes and shorts too big for him, like they had been passed down through generations. His hair was wild, a nest of dark curls, framing a face etched with uncertainty. But when he played, there was something divine about him. His eyes closed, lost in a world I could only dream of. I stood there, breathless. I had my own struggles, the weight of my father's disapproval stung with every step I took. I felt out of place in my own home, the clang of disappointment echoing in my mind. But this boy, with his enchanting music, seemed to rise above it all. His joy, his pine-knit resonated with me. It shimmered against the raw edges of my own life that he poured his heart into that piano, the sound weaving its way through the empty streets. It danced off the cramped houses, twirling with the wind. People stopped to listen, capturing the fragile moment. An older man leaned against his car, a woman paused with her baby in a stroller. How could such a simple song hold so much power? I felt the tears start, blurring my vision. Where had this boy learned to play? Why was he here, in this forgotten lot? Then, something strange happened. A man appeared, a shadow looming over the boy. His face twisted in anger, eyes dark as night. Stop playing! He bellowed, like thunder crashing through the soft melody. The boy flinched, fingers freezing mid-air. The music died, leaving a hollow silence that throbbed painfully in my chest that I wanted to scream. I wanted to protect him. But I felt frozen, caught between my fear and the urge to help, two worlds colliding. The man shouted again, "You think you can just play here? You don't own anything." I held my breath, feeling the tension grip my heart. This wasn't just about music. This was about kindness. About giving space for someone's spirit to soar. I felt a lump in my throat, a burning sensation overwhelming me. What could I do? Then, as if the universe was aligning, the boy looked up, his eyes meeting mine, pleading and desperate. In that moment, I knew. I couldn't walk away. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I rushed towards the lot, my heart hammering against my ribs like a frantic drum. The boy's eyes held a silent plea that reverberated through me, igniting a fire I didn't know I possessed. I could barely fathom the gravity of the moment unfolding, a confrontation fueled by fear, misunderstanding, and pain. As I reached the edge of the lot, my instincts kicked in, propelling me forward. "Leave him alone!" I shouted, my voice trembling but determined. The man turned, surprise flashing across his features, his anger shifting into amusement. He regarded me like I was a fly buzzing at a picnic, hardly worth his attention but a nuisance nonetheless. "Mind your own business, kid," he sneered, dismissing me as effortlessly as one would swat away a bothersome insect. But I persisted, feeling the weight of the boy's gaze behind me. "He has every right to play. That music, it's beautiful. You can't just take that away from him." My chest tightened with the intensity of my emotions, and despite my wavering stature, I stood taller, driven by the melody still lingering in the air. For a moment, the man hesitated, confusion flitting across his face as if he'd forgotten what the fight was even about. Then, with a scoff, his eyes narrowed, and he growled low, "You don't know anything, kid. This is no place for music. It's just some old junk." The dismissive wave of his hand felt like a slap, and the pain flared hot within me that I bit my lip, standing on shaky ground, torn between my impulse to lash out and the crushing realization that my words were weaker than the rising tide of fear surrounding this boy. Yet, in that moment, reflection was a luxury I couldn't afford. Serenity turned to storm. I moved closer to the boy, who now sat wide-eyed, caught between hope and dread. Then, unexpectedly, from a distance, I heard a voice, a calming aura that cut through the tension. "Hey! What's going on here?" An elderly woman, with a basket full of groceries, stepped forward, her brow furrowed in concern. "Why are you yelling, son?" Both the man and I turned toward her, surprise reflected on our faces. I took a breath, desperately trying to harness the warmth of her presence. "He's just trying to play music," I shouted, gesturing toward the boy. "And this man," I glanced at the scowling figure. "He's scared to let him." The old woman's gaze flickered to the boy, then back to the man. "Everyone deserves to be heard. Go ahead, let him play. You never know how much a few notes can mean." Her voice was gentle but powerful, grounding me like an anchor. The man hesitated again, stepping back as the weight of her words hovered in the air. In that fragile pause, I could see the conflict in his eyes, the wavering between indifference and empathy. Maybe he hadn't heard music in years, maybe he didn't even remember what it felt like to listen. In the mounting silence, the boy's expression softened, cautious hope replacing fear. Slowly, I turned back to him. "You can continue," I said, locking eyes with him, willing him to believe. "Please." He nodded, his fingers trembling as they returned to the keys. The first note danced into the air, hesitant at first but quickly gathering momentum. With every strike, his confidence returned, the haunting melody weaving stories, the stories of 1,000 unspoken dreams. The sound enveloped us all, pushing aside anger and gloom, filling the space with resonance. The elderly woman began to sway, half-closed eyes relishing the moment. The man's expression changed, caught almost imperceptibly an internal struggle beneath the tough facade. Then, just as hope began to blossom, a shout erupted from behind us. "What are you doing? Get away from that piano!" A voice, harsher than the first, encroached on our fragile peace. I turned, my heart dropping, realizing the second figure was a woman, an adult this time, storming toward us, rage painted across her features. "Why can't you leave him alone? You have no right to." But before I could get my words out, I froze, recognizing her. It was the boy's mother, her eyes flaring with frantic concern and protective instinct. "Do you know what you're doing? This is not where he belongs." Panic surged through me, and the music faltered, mingling with confusion in the air. The boy's delicate world began to unravel again, dashed by fear. My heart raced anew, caught between wanting to protect him, to advocate for his music, and the disheartening reality that kindness could be so easily met with fear and anger. In that tense moment, as I opened my mouth to respond, I caught a glimpse of the boy, tears welling in his eyes, the weight of the world heavier than his small shoulders could carry. "Please," I breathed, my voice trembling as I looked at his mother. "Let him have this. He needs it." As the atmosphere crackled with uncertainty, everything hinged on a singular pivotal moment. Would she understand, or would fear once again snuff out the remaining glimmer of hope? "Please," I breathed, my voice trembling as I looked at his mother. "Let him have this. He needs it." The woman hesitated, her expression shifting from fierce protectiveness to a storm of emotions, a mix of confusion, anger, and perhaps a flicker of recognition. I hoped she might see the boy through my eyes, to understand the significance of those stolen notes, that they were far more than just sound, they were the boy's voice, his escape from the gripping darkness that surrounded him. But instead, she took a step closer, eyes darting between me and the boy, fury battling with concern. "He doesn't need this. It's dangerous. Her voice cracked as she turned to her son, who was now visibly shaken, the melody dying on his lips. "Mom, please," he whispered, reaching out toward her, the tremor in his voice betraying his quiet pleading. "Don't you dare," she shot back, her words sharp, slicing through the already fragile air. "You think this is what you want? Playing your music like some sort of dream? You don't understand what's out there." These people, she gestured vaguely, her distaste warding off the strangers in the lot, including the man who had faded into the background, now entirely overshadowed by her imposing presence. A quiver of realization coursed through me. This boy was caught in a war between wanting freedom and fearing what lay beyond his reach. For a fleeting moment, I wondered what lurked in the shadows of her own past, what fears had gripped her so tight that she couldn't see the possibility shimmering before her. A simple wish to be heard. The old woman, still standing by my side, shifted her weight as uncertainty stretched in the air, sensing the heaviness of the moment. "Ma'am, she's right," she said gently, addressing the boy's mother, her wisdom radiating through the tension. "We all face fears, but sometimes we let them blind us to what's truly important. Music can heal." But the mother turned her back on the old woman and her words, looking only at her son, her brow furrowed. "You want to play? Fine, but what if they come back? What then?" Her voice rose again, echoing through the alleyway, a hollow chasm of worry and anguish that I wanted to scream, to shake her and make her see the light she was drowning out, but I also understood the weight of parenthood. The fear that came from protectiveness could masquerade as love, but it could also suffocate the ones we cared for most. The boy's shoulders slumped, and his hands hung at his sides as he searched for words to bridge the chasm between them. I stepped beside him, my heart aching at the sight of his confusion. "Please, let him play. Just for a little while," I implored, feeling the burden of his dreams hanging in the balance. "He deserves to express himself without fear." Her fierce gaze shifted back to me, flaring with indignation. "And you think you know what's best for him? You have no idea what we've gone through." "I just want him to be happy," I said, the desperation bursting forth like a dam breaking. "Isn't that what every parent wants?" In her moment of indecision, the air thickened with silence, the melody lingering like a prayer, a plea floating around us as if the world had paused. And then, as if summoned by fate, a sudden gust swept through the lot, rustling papers and scattering loose debris, stirring the echoes of the boy's earlier music. The echoes looped and twined around us, vibrant notes carving their mark in the heavy silence, wrapping us in memories of laughter, music, and those fleeting moments of joy that we all craved. The boy looked up at his mother with a newfound blend of bravery and vulnerability. "Mom, I need this," he whispered, his voice steadying despite the crack in it. "I need to feel something. Please let me try." The soft vulnerability in his words sunk deep, and my heart raced with a mixture of hope and dread. Would this bridge be enough to span the fear that divided them? Tears glimmered in his mother's eyes, and for a fragile moment, I swore I saw the barriers crack, as shifting from control to care. But then, with a sharp turn, she shook her head, her features hardening. "No. You don't understand." The weight of despair enveloped him, and the haunting music hung unplayed in the air like a ghost of what could be. Everything within me surged a burning desire to shatter the darkness, to weave hope in the form of simple notes. "What about the past?" I blurted, surprising myself. "What if it was those very same fears that closed off your dreams? What if this is your chance to change it all?" A glimmer of conflict danced behind her eyes once more, but then I sensed the instinct to retreat slide back in, overshadowing the encouragement. She turned sharply, taking a step away, her voice strained. "You don't know anything. We can't be here." And before I could respond, she clasped her son's wrist. Just when it felt like everything was unraveling, the boy glanced back at me, uncertainty mixed with an ember of defiance. Our eyes met, and I knew that every possible path for him stretched before us, each one marked by whether he would dare to fight for his right to be heard. But then her voice cut through the air again, sharp and expectant. "You're coming with me." Now that as she began to pull him away, I felt a rush of despair pooling deep inside me, just as the piano's silence settled like a heavy blanket over us. With a sudden resolve, I called out, "Please. Just one song. Just one song, and then you can go." I promise. In her eyes, I saw the fleeting contemplation before she steeled herself again, and the boy looked back one last time, his hope flickering like a candle caught in a storm. No. You need to come now. She yelled, jerking his wrist, and as she started to pull him away, the last remnants of fear seeped into his expression, a haunting worry that pierced through my heart, and then, as the growing distance between us stretched like a yawning chasm, the boy uttered a single phrase that hung in the air like a whispered prayer. I wish I could. I will. Before she could pull him away entirely, I lunged forward, desperate to bridge that gap. You will. Believe it. I know you will. And just as the storm of emotions reached its peak, she turned quickly, her body blocking my friend from my sight. In doing so, there was a flash. Her purse slipped from her shoulder, hitting the ground with a soft thud, spilling its contents. Among the chaos, a small object rolled out, a tarnished old key that glinted in the half-light. I crouched instinctively to reach for it as a command reverberated through me, a thought that hit harder than any other. This key might hold the secrets to unlock futures we could only dream about, but as I glanced back at the boy, caught between his mother's restraint and the dreams unfulfilled, I realized I had no time to think. I made a decision in that moment, and the world shifted once again. That I scooped the key into my palm, feeling its weight as a reminder of the journey yet to unfold, just as the icy grip of fear wrapped tighter around us, and from somewhere near the back end of the lot, an engine roared to life, drowning out everything, thrusting us into a shocking twist I could never have foreseen. The engine's growl reverberated around us, a metallic heartbeat that strained against the aching silence left behind by the boy's mother. My grip tightened around the key, the irrefutable evidence of untold stories that felt painfully close yet infinitely far away. I shared a look with the boy, his eyes wide, swimming in a sea of indecision, while his mother remained focused on the looming danger. Her voice was shaky yet resolute. We can't stay here, you don't understand. She tried to pull him away, yet there was a flicker of resistance in him, a storm greater than the one she feared outside their small world. Mom, maybe this is what we need? His voice cracked, desperation clinging to his words. What if we're not as trapped as we think? With every heartbeat that passed, I felt the weight of the unsaid force itself into the air. The sound of the engine grew louder, a dark omen. Hope was an unbearable tension straining at the edges of our reality, and I could feel it drawing us in despite the fears chaining him to his mother. Don't listen to her. Don't listen to anyone. I cried out, my voice a bridge built from raw emotion. You have a choice. You can create your own destiny. It starts with this moment. Please. I held the key up like a talisman, the glint of metal almost glaring given the twilight shadows surrounding us. Leave him alone. The mother screamed, retreating further, but her words lacked conviction, stumbling under the burden of fear and protectiveness. Even she knew there was a creeping illumination possible through the cracks she tried to seal. Just one song, I urged, and my heart raced as I searched the boy's face, a tapestry of confusion and longing. Show her what it means to be free. Show her what you are capable of. The roaring engine reverberated like a war cry, and suddenly, the shadows danced. The fear she projected suddenly became palpable, threatening to engulf us all. I knew I might not have much time left to unravel this knot that had been tying the boy's spirit for too long. Play. Play for her. My plea echoed, transforming into a desperate chant, and I watched as a flicker of something bright shimmered in the boy's eyes. He took a step forward, breaking the binding hold of his mother, who looked back at him, disbelief mixed with a pleading fear. I am scared. He burst out, his voice trembling with raw honesty, the lake of emotion that was so deep and so profound reflecting back at me what I had long since buried. What if it hurts? What if it's too much? And there it was, the crux of the battle within him, split between the chains of his mother's fear and the desire for liberation, the longing to be heard, to play like the stars were waiting for him to stitch together a new dream of his own. In that moment, without thinking, I reached for the piano, fingers trembling as I struck the keys that held the ghosts of 1,000 dreams. The notes rang out, a soft whisper at first, then cascading through the alley, birthed from the connection we all had to the music, weaving hopes and memories into the fabric of the air. For an instant it was as if time stopped, and laughter mingled with echoes of sorrow wrapped around us, forging a tapestry made of shared fears and profound love. The boy's eyes darkened with understanding. "Mom, it's okay to feel scared," he said, mirroring the very essence of bravery. "But I don't want to be stuck anymore." The echoes of my own buried dreams mingled with his, and something inside me broke free. I closed my eyes, letting the melody guide me deeper into the rivers of emotion flowing between us, where hopes were born anew. As if pulled by the strings of the emotional swell, he moved to the piano. Tentatively, he placed his fingers on the keys, and then, with the slightest flinch, began to play. A gentle harmony emerged, trembling about us, breathing life into fading shadows, and then, just as the notes stirred something beyond the present moment, I heard the sudden breaking of glass. A flash of lights illuminated the alley, an ominous reminder that outside forces were encroaching, darker than we had anticipated. "Run!" yelled a voice from the shadows, jolting me back as chaos descended. The sound of shattered glass also felt like the shattering of dreams. The engine roared again, an unsympathetic reminder of the world's unrelenting grip. In a heartbeat, I turned to the boy, seeing the hesitant shock written on his face, and instinctively grabbed his hand, the warmth of his pulse tangling with the cool metal of the key in my pocket. "We have to go now. Don't let fear decide for you." But as the boy's mother reeled backward, her breath hitching in that moment of realization, a different emotion surged through her eyes, a mix of regret and raw understanding. Would she allow this small taste of freedom to blossom? Would she choose to catch up with her son or remain rooted in fear's grip? The urgency heightened. Gripping the boy's hand, I darted forward, knowing I couldn't leave them behind, knowing that in our greatest heartache lay an opportunity to break barriers. Just as we began to make our escape, her voice broke through the chaos in a whisper that shattered the air around us. "Wait!" His father time froze, and all the pieces came crashing down. "What?" I turned back, every fiber of me electrified by the weight of her admission. What had she just said? But then I heard a chaotic scuffle, and the rising roar of coming danger drowned out her words as the shadows shifted, eager to ensnare us in their vicious grip. "Mom, let's go!" the boy cried, his eyes darting between us, thinly veiled panic dancing at their edges, but it felt as though something vital shifted in the air, a promise of what could become unraveled, revealing truths buried beneath layers of fear. But before we could move, a figure emerged from the darkened edge of the alley, cloaked in shadows yet radiating authority. An imprint of familiarity flickered in the fading light. "Stop!" And in that piercing command, the world we had tried to build began to smash down around us all over again, leaving behind nothing but a depth of uncertainty, fear, and an ache that echoed deeper than any notes could ever express. The echo of the command sent a shiver ricocheting through my bones, reaching the very core of my heart. The figure standing before us, cloaked in darkness yet illuminated by the harshness of the streetlights, demanded our attention with an intensity that felt both foreign and hauntingly familiar. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, a fragile shield against the rising tide of fear. The boy clutched my hand tightly, all the warmth of his tiny frame seeming to dissipate, replaced by the cold grip of uncertainty. "Someone who knows more than you think," the figure replied. As they took a step forward, the light revealed a face that felt like a distant memory, etched with lines of sorrow and wisdom, a paternal resemblance caught in the crossfire of forgotten years. "Dad?" the boy breathed, his voice breaking on the precipice of disbelief. The word hung between us, raw like a wound, and time itself seemed to exhale in acknowledgement of the past resurfacing. But the mother's reaction was instantaneous. Fear leapt into her gaze, transforming into a tempest swirling around the edges of her frantic heartbeat. "No. Retract your words, Jeremy. It can't be." Her voice cracked under the weight of nostalgic pain. "Hesn't what you think." "Not anymore," Jeremy interrupted, his face reflecting hope tempered with an aching need for answers. A boy yearning to understand why the melodies of his life were complicated by the echoes of grief and anger. The air thickened between them, interwoven with the tension of shared scars and buried truths. I stood to the side, feeling like a spectator in a play where every line was a revelation, where the arrows were aimed at both the heart and the spirit. "Let's not do this here," Jeremy's father said, his voice softer now, but laced with urgency. "The danger is real and close. We have to make a choice now. It can be a new beginning, but not here, not now." And there it was, the crux of our unfolding drama. How do stained pasts marry the hope for brighter futures? The boy's gaze darted to his mother, the abiding love warring against freshly planted seeds of resentment and loss, unearthing old patterns more fragile than glass. "Everything you've held on to has kept you in the dark," the father said finally, his voice lowered yet reverberating with an undeniable authority. "It feeds the fear that binds us. But it doesn't have to be that way." Amidst this chaotic confrontation, a flicker of something shifted in me, a glimmer of hope. I thought of the boy, his talent woven deep within the chords of a piano and the possibility of healing that music could bring. "You both deserve a shot at your own melodies." What if I hesitated before continuing, feeling the weight of their stare? What if you could start over? On different terms? His mother opened her mouth, ready to dismiss the idea, but I pressed on. "Let go of the past just for a moment. See your son. See him here, alive and full of potential, ready to step beyond the shadows that have held you both captive." The silence crackled, a palpable force among all of us, and I witnessed the flicker of doubt shift through her features. My heart drummed a frantic rhythm as I hoped she would grasp this sliver of opportunity glistening like starlight in the deep of night. "Dads don't just walk away, Jeremy," she said, her voice trembling with the weight of conflicting emotions, rage and yearning mixing in a cyclone of longing for what was lost. "You think the past can just be erased? Maybe it can't be erased," Jeremy's father rejoined, eyes pleading as he searched her face. "But we can rewrite what happens next. We can confront it together." And there it was, the fragile thread of understanding weaving momentarily amid the chaos, a small shaft of light clawing its way into existence that could illuminate the darkness surrounding their hearts. But just then, the sound of footsteps approached, inexorable and relentless. The danger was looming closer, shadows in the alley beginning to solidify into threats that cracked the newfound serenity surrounding us. "Take him and run," the mother suddenly screeched. Her voice laced with urgency and determination, even as her heart screamed for her son to stay. "I can't go back to that life. This can't be for me." "No, Mom, don't," he was pleading, a stray note of desperation ringing from his lips, but before he could finish, she pushed him toward me, tears streaming down her face as raw pain twisted her features. "Run," she yelled again, more insistently this time, a storm of emotions driving her desperation. "You have a chance. Don't let it be taken from you." It was an impossible choice tearing at our souls. And just as I turned to grab the boy, to try and shield him from the encroaching darkness, I saw the father take a step back, resolute but burdened, a face of someone who had lost his way but yearned to find it again. "Mom," the boy started, but the rupture in their connection had begun to stretch like the chasm of lost time. With each second, the imminent threat grew thicker, whispering ominous secrets in the wind, wrapping around us with icy hands, but before I could act, the figure in the shadows pulled away, revealing the potential seed of kindness and understanding hidden beneath the mantle of hesitation. "He'll stay with her," he said finally, determination painted across his features, braving the approaching danger with an unwavering stance. "You go. Save yourself." The weight of his words crushed us, swirling around my heart, anchoring the briefly glowing warmth of hope beneath layers of loss and uncertainty. But did I dare to leave them behind? Each heartbeat roared like a warning, the shadows of our own fears forming shackles that held us close. "Let's get out of here," I forced out, pulling the boy toward the alley's exit, even as I felt the solidness of those old ties calling back. And just as I broke through the mouth of the alley into the uncertain world ahead, a sudden noise pierced the air, creating a symphony of dread, a gunshot ringing out, chaos manifested. "No!" the boy screamed, his voice launched straight into the chaotic night, reverberating on waves of despair that crashed over us like tidal forces. Tension seized the moment, spiraling it into an abyss of uncertainty. Some shapes in the alley began to shift toward us, the danger heightening, exposing all the scars we had lovingly hidden. The future felt unbearably fragile, a crescendo of possibilities converging at the precipice of darkness and unfathomable light. And as I turned back one last time toward the shadows, still grappling with the weight of what lay behind, the last thing I caught was the glimmer of fresh understanding in the boy's eyes, flickering like the final note of a haunting melody, an unknown story waiting to unfold, aching for the kindness to crack open its tale. The frantic echo of Jeremy's scream ricocheted in my ears, pulling me back to the alley, my heart skidding to a halt. I hesitated for just a moment, glancing over my shoulder, the chaos morphing around us into a spiraling descent, the promise of new melodies suddenly muffled by the thunderous roar of gunfire. The boy's small body trembled next to me, his wide eyes glossy with tears, still locked in disbelief. "Mom! Dad!" he cried, desperation lacing his voice like a haunting refrain. "Jeremy!" I whispered, gripping his hand tighter, a lifeline held fast between us as the world darkened apace. "We have to go." But the boy didn't budge, rooted in that neon-lit doorway of anguish like a fragile statue carved from ice. I felt the weight of his fear of leaving and fear of staying, and I couldn't dare to imagine what was unfolding behind us. In that moment, a flicker of warmth pierced through the encroaching cold. A woman stepped from the shadows at the alley's mouth, her face alight with concern as she approached. "What's going on? Are you two all right?" she asked, her voice steady with unexpected kindness in a night of turmoil, like a spark igniting in an otherwise dark room. "Please, we need help," I implored, yanking Jeremy gently at my side, drawing him just a tiny bit closer to this new possibility for rescue. The woman looked toward the alley, her jaw tightening at the sound of muffled shouts and the distant thud of footsteps quickly closing in. "Come with me. There's no time." As she turned to flee, I saw the way her hand shot out, beckoning us forward. My instincts warred violently as the darkness behind us grew thicker. We could dive into the warmth of unknown shelter, or we could face the inevitable peril lurking in the shadows. But I had to make a choice, and I mustered every ounce of courage I could find. "Come on, Jeremy," I urged, tugging him along as I followed the woman, praying he would trust this stranger just long enough to escape the clutches of uncertainty that writhed in the shadows. Once through the threshold, I felt a rush of adrenaline flow through me, the world outside juxtaposed against the cacophony brewing behind us. We stumbled into an alleyway that felt impossibly bright, illuminated by flickering light bulbs strung overhead, illuminating walls drenched in vibrant murals that spoke of hope despite the thick air of desperation that followed us. "Stay close to me," I warned, my heart pounding against my chest, wrapping around Jeremy's trembling body in a protective embrace. The stranger led us swiftly down the side streets, the echoes of chaos dying down like the last notes of a soft lullaby. "You're safe here, I promise. Just a little farther." Her voice was a soothing balm as she glanced back, concern etched across her brow. With every step we took, Jeremy held on tighter, the terror melting slightly as we moved farther from the chaos. But the knot in my stomach remained, casting shadows of dread over the blooming hope. Each breath was heavy with unspoken worries. Where would we go? Would they find us? And would the boy ever understand the depth of loss hiding behind his father's face? Finally, we reached a door, old and weathered but undeniably welcoming in its mundanity. The woman knocked, a rhythm that felt familiar, like a heartbeat echoing through the walls. "Come on, you two," she encouraged, her eyes sparkling with an unwavering kindness that I hadn't expected. "Just a moment, you're safe." The door creaked open, revealing an elder woman who appeared to be brimming with warmth despite her age. "Celia, what have we?" she began, but her expression rapidly shifted to one of deep concern as she took in Jeremy's tear-streaked face. "It's okay, Grandma, I've got them," Celia assured her, stepping aside to usher us in. Inside, the reprieve was instant, the air infused with a sweet aroma of cinnamon that hung heavy and inviting, a stark contrast to the shivering anxiety still grappling at my chest. The grandmother enveloped Jeremy in a hug as Celia guided me into the comforting embrace of a dimly lit living room. "What happened?" she asked. Gently, her voice wrapping around us like a warm blanket that promised safety. "That a misunderstanding. Something terrible is happening back there," I explained, battling the tightening knot in my throat as memories of the gunshot twisted like a blade within me. "We couldn't just stand there. He needs his mom and dad. We'll help you, don't worry," Celia said, her fierce spark igniting a sliver of hope within me, making me believe we could weave our own story amidst the misfortunes that threatened to swallow us whole. Just as this newfound warmth began to dispel the feeling of dread, the door behind us suddenly creaked ajar, the sound like a final heartbeat before silence. The crack of light from the hallway stopped me mid-sentence, urging me to stand still like prey caught in the crosshairs of approaching shadows. Celia. The voice called, urgent and familiar. Open the door. We need to get them out of here. The moment stretched, every heartbeat slowing as I glimpsed an outline merging into view, the face half hidden in darkness. My heart dropped once more, pooling in my stomach as the weight of recognition burgeoned inside. It was Jeremy's father, his eyes wild but fixed, locked onto his son with a feral intensity that spoke volumes. Let me in. Please. He pleaded, desperation clawing at every syllable, the very essence of a father's love housing pure fear and longing. I turned toward Jeremy, whose eyes now filled with awe and confusion, the lines drawn within him tugging closely at a tangled web of conflicting emotions. What was happening? Did we dare cross paths with the past again when everything about our current existence hung precipitously in balance? As I stood frozen between two worlds, the beckoning warmth of love promised inside against the siren call reverberating from Jeremy's father, the air thickened with silent possibilities, each breath climbing toward a moment that could either bind us together or tear us apart, and in that moment, the unknown hung tantalizingly before us, echoing the haunting melody that could yet still save us or pull us deeper into the abyss. The tension in the room thrummed like a string pulled too tight, vibrating with the weight of unspoken words and emotions. I could see Jeremy's heart wrestle with his own inner storm, his father a phantom stirring memories both cherished and painful. The storm raging outside this moment portended anew the turmoil within. Dad! Jeremy finally shrieked, his voice a raw blend of joy and trepidation that burst forth like a fragile flower breaking through the frost. I could feel my own heart clenching helplessly in reaction. Jeremy. His father finally managed to twist the door open, a ferocity fueling him, eyes fierce with concern. Get away from her, son. Come on, we have to get out of here. Celia stepped forward, her tone steady yet filled with an urgency that felt both protective and authoritative. Stop. You can't just barge in here like this. This is a safe space. No safe place exists if my son's here. Jeremy's father shot back, rage and fear fighting for dominance in his voice. This was my fault. I can't let them take him back into. He hesitated, catching himself as though the words could summon a specter of danger lurking just outside. That I felt Jeremy's grip on my hand tighten, a small anchor in the storm, while within me swirled a potent cocktail of dread and resolve. They're right, you can't take Jeremy back, I whispered, my heart thundering. He's scared. We're all scared. Scared? Do you understand what's coming for him? His voice dropped, the intensity honing into focus as he glanced over his shoulder, wild and flickering like a candle barely holding on amidst a gale. Please, I pleaded, we need to talk this through. If there's danger, well, face it together. The idea of leaving this small sanctuary felt insurmountable when the air felt thick with impending dread, so many threads of connection fraying around us. For a fleeting moment, we stood suspended in the midst of a tableau of emotions, longing, fear, hope, a kaleidoscope of lives' complexities rippling between two worlds colliding. I and that charged silence, the grandmother, searching more deeply through the chaos, cast a gentle yet fierce gaze upon Jeremy's father. Your son deserves to feel safe. Don't you want that for him? Jeremy's father hesitated, the torrent of emotions that coursed through him playing out across the landscape of his face. I thought I was protecting him by staying away, but and look where that has led, Celia interjected softly, her voice like a bridge built between hearts. He's not safe while you're in danger. It's hard to see, I know, but staying away could be just as harmful. Jeremy's eyes flickered between his father and me, uncertain as if navigating a maze with no clear exit, building walls even as he felt the tugging safety of love. The love that had once painted his childhood with laughter now tangled him in shadows. That I want to be with you, Dad, Jeremy said, voice trembling as if the very admission itself was a bittersweet melody escaping his lips. But I don't want to leave them. He pointed between us, fear weaving into his small voice, a trembling note of despair threading thickly between love and danger. The cacophony outside rose anew, clashing like a war drum heralding the approach of dire fate. Each pulse echoed through the room, the way the walls pressed inward as uncertainty settled like a fog. Let them help you, I urged his father, drawing strength from the warmth of understanding. Let us find a way to do this together before it's too late. But just as the father of the boy looked torn between worlds, another ripple of sound crashed through a deep roar, unmistakable and immediate, rattling windows and sparking fear like broken glass. What was that? Jeremy's father demanded, panic twisting in his throat. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked ominously, as if each second threatened our fragility. Stay calm. Celia both soothed and commanded. We can't let fear take over. But her own gaze darted to the window. I could see her uniformity crack slightly, like paint peeling from an old canvas, her resolve tested by the gravity of our shared moment. Then, an unthinkable thought flickered into life, a moment too potent to ignore, a realization born from the air thick with tension. What if we are being watched? I gasped suddenly, every fiber of my being now igniting with dread. Jeremy's father drew back, broadening the distance between us in instinctual fear, eyes wide with the gravity of unkind truths. How could they know? Celia looked between the three of us, her decisiveness momentarily faltering. They're watching someone. We need to find a way to leave here. The realization weighed down on us, darkness clawing at the edges of our makeshift haven. Just then, the door slammed against the wall, bursting back open with heavy footsteps following it, a cadre of figures silhouetted against the brightness of the world outside, their intentions looming like thunderclouds ready to unleash a storm. Make it quick. One shouted, fear lacing their tone. We can't hold them back for long. Time felt suspended as we faced this new threat, my heart thrumming in sync with the dawning horror on Jeremy's face. What was I supposed to do now? To protect Jeremy, to shield him from this new layer of danger, even as our fragile sanctuary shattered around us, its pieces glinting like shards of hope before plunging into despair. In that moment of heightened realization, as we raced against the darkening tide of fate, everything hinged on the choices we would make next. Echoing long past this night, my heart beat rapidly, the specter of loss brushing against the fragile strings of our deeply entwined destinies. The air crackled with urgency as we faced the looming threat at the door, each heartbeat causing the world around us to fade a little more. Jeremy was clutching my arm, his small frame shaking under the weight of impending uncertainty. The figures beyond the threshold crested like waves about to crash, and panic turned my blood to ice. Celia stepped forward, arms raised as if to ward off whatever darkness threatened to flood our sanctuary. Please. We don't want any trouble, she called out, her voice steady even as the tremors betrayed her insides. I could barely breathe, the suspense thickening the air like a heavy shroud. The lead figure, a tall silhouette with a face obscured by shadows, paused, surveying us with a gaze that felt unnervingly scrutinizing, as if they could peel back layers of our fears with mere intent. We've come for Jeremy, the voice declared, low and sinister, drawing chills down my spine. No. His father yelled, advancing as if to shield his son, instinctively positioning himself between Jeremy and the encroaching danger, a lion defending its cub. I could see the turmoil in his face mirrored in Jeremy's eyes, love battling raw fear, each struggling to escape the chasm that threatened to consume us all. We don't want to go back, Dad. Jeremy's voice quivered through the turbulence, pulled taut by uncertainty. I'm afraid I want to stay here. The proclamation landed heavily in the air, and for a fleeting moment, I felt an ethereal bond link us, love forged against an unforgiving world. A sound echoed softly from behind, an echo of a piano note, fragile and haunting, cascading amidst the chaos like a distant lullaby. I held on to it like a lifeline, recalling our small moments of joy, the melodies that once painted our shared sanctuary in colors of hope. But hope faded into the shadows as the figures stepped closer, the lead one gesturing for the others to advance. Jeremy, you don't understand, this is for your own good. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The voice dripped with a false sweetness, sharp as glass across my skin. My heart raced, and the fear coursing through me turned chaotic. I knew I had to be the voice of strength and calm amidst the madness that encircled us. No one is taking him anywhere. I shouted, the words spilling out like a floodgate breaking. He has a choice, and you can't force him back into a life he runs from. A flicker of surprise pierced the lead figure's confidence, if only for a moment. The padlock on their expression faltered. You don't understand who you're dealing with, they hissed, trying to regain control. I could see the stiffness in their shoulders, the uncertainty just beneath the surface. That I understand that love is worth fighting for, I countered, each word strung with my resolve. He deserves kindness, safety, something you can't provide if it only breeds fear. As if bolstered by my defiance, Jeremy rushed to my side, squeezing my hand as if to express the unspoken gratitude blooming within him. The warmth of that connection ignited something deep inside me. If Jeremy believed in this insatiable hunger for freedom, so would I. Celia sidestepped, her eyes darting between the figures and us, finally locking onto the lead. You're not here to help him, you're here to contain him. You want to control, not protect. There's a difference. In the depths of my heart, I felt the warmth of hope flickering back to life. Who knew that a few simple words could redirect the course of fate? But as uncertainty lingered, another shadow emerged from the darkness behind the lead figure, a young girl, not much older than Jeremy, stepping forward hesitantly. I could see tears pooling in her eyes, and my heart twisted painfully as I recognized her silvery hair silhouetted against the dim light, a face I had seen moments before, dreams fading against the backdrop of anguish. Help us, Jeremy, she cried, her voice fragile but laced with undeniable emotion. They're not just coming for you, they're coming for all of us. A deafening silence enveloped us, echoing the gravity of her words. Our world spun inward like a whirlwind, and my heart felt as if it might burst open. The girl's plea shattered illusions I had clung to, introducing a new layer of reality. None of us were truly safe. Who are you? Jeremy's father demanded, confused yet protective, his instinct to shield Jeremy rising fervently against the storm. I am Alice, she replied, voice trembling yet fierce. They will take any child who stands out, who calls for help. It's not just about Jeremy, it's much larger than that. They want to silence us all. The ramifications of her revelation weighed heavy, each breath tasted like iron and sorrow in my throat. I turned to Jeremy, searching his face for any glimmer of resolve, but found only confusion and terror. How could we save ourselves when the walls were closing in, and a chorus of dreams hung between us like glass ornaments on a treetop? Summoning every ounce of bravery, I stepped forward, gripping Jeremy's shoulder. We will find a way, together. We will not let them win. But as hope flickered again, a distant rumble thundered across the night sky, darkness creeping in. The shadows outside grew darker, looming over our fragile display of defiance. The figures pressed closer, an ominous reminder of an inevitable confrontation, a test of our resolve against the encroaching void, and just as we held our ground, something catastrophic erupted from outside. The blast shook the very foundation of our sanctuary, my heart racing as the impact reverberated through the very marrow of my being. Windows shattered, and we all flinched as darkness threatened to envelop us, laughter like thunder echoing from beyond the doors. And that very moment, it hit me, our fight had only just begun, and we were standing on the precipice of something far greater than we had ever imagined. I felt the fragility of life echo through the walls as I realized, sometimes the kindest act is to fiercely fight for your right to exist, even when the storm rages against you. And just then, amidst the cacophony of chaos, I caught the last glimpse of Innocencia. Soft piano melody surged once more in the distance, a haunting and beautiful anthem that reminded us that kindness was a lesson worth learning. A sudden roar of destruction shattered the night, and as the ground quaked beneath us, the dim light that had once filled our sanctuary flickered and dimmed. My heart pounded in sync with the chaos, and a knot of dread tightened around my throat. It wasn't just fear for Jeremy, it was a stark realization that the walls we had built around ourselves had become as fragile as glass, threatening to shatter at any moment. Stay close, I urged, pulling Jeremy against me. His father's face was taut with anger and determination, each muscle straining against the impending threat that loomed just beyond our barricade. Celia quickly ushered Alice towards the back of the room, protective instincts kicking in as she glanced nervously toward the door. The figures outside had begun to chant, a guttural sound resonating through the very fabric of our being. I didn't understand their words, but the malice hung heavy, a dark cloud curling around us, smothering the faint light from the candles we had lit earlier. Even the melody that had twinged with our shared joy faded to an echo, as if reminding us that hope could be extinguished in an instant. As the lead figure stepped through the splintered doorway, the room seemed to collapse under the weight of their presence. Long fingers reached out, beckoning us towards submission, and I felt Jeremy tremble beside me. The girl, Alice, stood firm, her resolve unyielding even in the face of terror. "We won't go back," she shouted, her voice ringing out like the strike of a bell, grounding us all momentarily. "Do you want to hurt us?" Jeremy's voice quavered as he squeezed my hand tighter, his small fingers digging into my palm. I could feel the warmth of his fear, wrapping around me like chains, but I couldn't falter. How could I show him that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to fight through it? At that moment, the room seemed to expand and contract with every breath we took. I noticed a shimmer in the shadows, a piece of glass from the broken window, reflecting flickering light, creating fleeting patterns that danced upon the walls. I thought of the piano. How memories, like the shattered glass, can create pain but also beauty when pieced back together. "Can you play?" I whispered to Jeremy, somehow believing the music could drown out the darkness creeping forward. He looked up, surprise mingling with uncertainty. "Play for us," I urged, grasping at the slim thread of hope that integrated our shared moments. The laughter from the park, the soft notes reverberating through old walls, entwining our hearts. Just then, a figure lunged toward us, but instead of pulling back, I stepped forward, bearing my heart through sheer will. "You can't take him," I shouted, my voice fierce and unwavering. And in that fragile yet powerful stance, I could feel a surge of energy course through me. Every ounce of my being was focused on Jeremy, on fighting for his right to choose. Then a miracle happened. Jeremy stepped away from me and toward the old piano in the corner of the room, dust motes swirling in the dim light. He hesitated, glancing back at his father and me, the weight of uncertainty growing in the heavy air. But I simply nodded, urging him on, as the figures outside pressed against the door in a rhythmic heartbeat, a race against time. With trembling fingers, Jeremy sat at the piano, and for a moment, the world fell silent. An emotion so profound enveloped the room. It was the tenderness of vulnerability wrapped around an unyielding spirit as he found his voice in the keys. The first few notes spilled forth, tentative yet filled with a haunting sweetness, each chord echoing a plea that wrestled against the pounding outside. Alice joined him, her silvery hair catching the dim light as she began to hum softly, a melody weaving through Jeremy's hesitant rhythmic collaboration born from the marrow of desperation. The sound soared, intertwining with our breaths, growing stronger as if the music itself was a beacon pushing back the looming darkness. But just as the melody began to bloom, shadows escalated, the figures loading their tension as they pressed against the barrier. I could see their faces contorting in rage and disbelief, the very essence of control slipping as they stared in awe at the courage of two children uniting through song. The raindrops of turmoil hit their steady facade, cracking it just slightly, and then, floating through the chaos like a whisper carried by the breeze, a new voice entered, the soft, gentle cadence of an elder I had never noticed before, quietly sitting on the steps at the back, adding harmonies that pulled us further into the warmth of connection. The deep resonance filled the room, mending our frayed nerves, cradling us within its embrace. In another moment of heightening pressure, a hand smashed against the door, wood splintering as it cracked under the ferocity outside. The sanctuary we had deemed as our refuge was crumbling, our defenses shattered with each blow. I turned to Jeremy, heart racing, his fingers momentarily stalling as fear flickered behind his eyes. The music wrapped around us like a thread, but would it be enough? As panic surged, the last clear note rang out, a haunting echo lingering in the air, a message of defiance and hope to stand united against what wanted to divide us. And just as the door gave way, splitting wide, revealing the menacing figures silhouetted against the darkness, the elder's final note blended with ours, and a gust of wind whipped through the room, carrying the remnants of our melody outward, a final declaration that resonated across the shadows. In that heartbeat, with hope shimmering just beyond reach, I realized that each moment of kindness, each shared note, held within it the power to reshape our fate. But as the doorway opened fully, revealing the storm of aggression waiting to consume us, I knew our true battle was far from over, and so we stood on the brink, heartbeats echoing beneath the weight of uncertainty, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, knowing that in kindness we would find our strength, a weapon forged from the music of our soul. I stood at the brink of chaos, the world compressing into a singular moment where every heartbeat held the weight of destiny. Jeremus' gentle melody intertwining with Alice's harmonies sang the unspoken fears and hopes we all clung to. However, just beyond the door, the figures loomed like shadows threatening to snuff out the flickering light we had kindled. When the door finally burst open, it revealed not just angry faces contorted with rage but also a recognition lingering in their eyes, a flicker of disbelief at the melody, the wild power of two children pouring out their hearts in a world that tried relentlessly to impose silence. A moment stretched so thin it felt as if the universe itself held its breath, allowing us to capture this fragile glimmer of defiance. With dim candlelight illuminating the anxiety on our faces, I could see Jeremy's eyes widen as he locked his gaze with mine, a silent plea that sparked something deep inside me. In that instant, I understood the magnitude of our choice, not just to escape but to rise against the weight of despair that sought to crush us. "Keep playing," I urged, my voice trembling but emboldened, infusing the air with hope. "Don't stop now." The melody deepened, resonating with a fervor that echoed the core of our beings as we poured our hearts into each note. Every chord spoke of a world where kindness was a guiding force, not a weapon. As if daring the darkness to listen, our music flourished amid the chaos, creating an impenetrable bubble woven from our shared sorrow and hope. The figures at the door hesitated, their expressions a mixture of confusion and fury, caught off guard by the warmth rising from the piano. "Shut it down," one of them bellowed, their voice laced with fear of the power emanating from our combined courage. But the music surged louder, buoyed by the courage lighting the room, and I felt a profound connection building with each note, an invisible bond tethering us together in this struggle against the encroaching shadows that swirling maelstrom of sound and defiance. The figures began to falter, their postures wavering against the unrelenting force we embodied. The room pulsed with shared energy, our fears transforming into harmonious resonance that reached out into the world beyond. I saw the flicker of understanding ignite in Jeremus' father's eyes, an unspoken acknowledgement that fear could only thrive in silence, and that love demanded to be heard. Then, from within the depths of panic, a voice emerged, soft yet authoritative. "What are you afraid of?" it asked, cutting through the chaos like a crystal-clear note striking the air. The lead figure paused, their expression shifting as they grappled with an emotion that lurked just behind anger. I met their eyes with all the courage I could muster, pushing against the waves of fear that threatened to drown us. "Fear can't claim us," I whispered, conveying every ounce of belief that had built in me during this tumultuous journey. In music, in kindness, we hold the power to choose to rise beyond the confines of past mistakes, beyond the shadows cast by fear. And there it was, the pivotal moment I had long hoped for, the possibility that kindness could penetrate the armor so tightly wrapped around hardened hearts. I could see understanding flicker beneath the anger swirling within the chaos. The grasp of despair was loosening its hold. Suddenly, the boy's father stepped forward, breaking through the tension, his voice a rich timbre deeper than I imagined. "Take a step back," he declared, surprising everyone including himself. "This is not who we are. We have lost enough already." With each syllable, the air shifted. His words sparked recognition within the figures, echoing like the rhythm flowing from the piano. And then, as if drawn by an unseen thread, the leader hesitated, their face softening for just an instant, revealing a soul entangled in the same web of fear. "Music," the leader murmured, confusion washing over their features. "What is this power?" "It's our hearts, unbound," I replied, each word draped in vulnerability, revealing the truth I had discovered amongst uncertainties. "It's the freedom to be heard." Suddenly, the figures began to lower their hostile postures, uncertainty blooming like petals from the root of the melody still resonating through the air. The lead's gaze shifted between us, a flickering ember born from the ashes of doubt. I seized the moment, knowing this was our chance to bridge the chasm. It was no longer about fighting or escaping but reclaiming our right to feel, to create, to flourish amid the chaos. "Together, we can choose harmony, or we can choose the cycle that leads us here again," I declared, offering my voice as an olive branch against the onslaught of fear. "But true strength lies in love and kindness." As the last of my words settled, I felt an overwhelming wave of understanding ripple through the shadows. The leader's shoulders slumped slightly as defiance cracked against the backdrop of old wounds, and for the first time, their anger began to dissolve into something deeper. An echo of recognition rang true. Then, unexpectedly, amidst this fragile reckoning, the girl Alice stepped forward, her eyes glowing fiercely with determination. "Jeremy deserves to live free, just like all of us. We will stand for each other," she shouted, her voice ringing out through the echoes of our shared resolve, igniting spirits we had collectively thought extinguished. Her courage lent itself to an undeniable momentum, and others within the shadows began to voice their own truths. I could see the walls slowly begin to drop as we united in shared resolve. The collective music of our souls crescendoed into something transformative, overpowering the din of hostility lingering just beyond our fragile sanctuary, and as the figures slowly stepped back, a flicker of uncertain hope danced in their eyes, a realization dawning that perhaps there was room for more than fear to prevail. The chords flowed through us, issuing a collective vow, a promise to each other that we would not succumb to darkness, we would not be broken. Standing among them, as we faced the thrumming heartbeat of the universe held captive by shadows, I felt the weight of collective strength, the power in choosing kindness, in choosing connection. The melody reached its peak, binding us all in a harmonious tapestry woven out of the threads of bravery, vulnerability, and love. In the aftermath of that haunting music, as we took steps toward a new sunrise, the air shimmered with untold possibilities. Through the chaos that had once threatened to suffocate us, we emerged, hearts intertwined, souls now unshackled. As I looked at Jeremy, I saw the flicker of hope ignite in his eyes, and I knew this moment would linger forever, a testament to the potency of our choice to embrace love in the face of despair. He smiled, a bright beacon against the looming uncertainty, and as we stood together, I felt the warmth of connection binding us all, transforming darkness into something gloriously beautiful. And in that moment, the world teaching through music echoed through my heart, reminding me that even in shadows, kindness could carve a path toward liberation, a powerful lesson, both a choice and a crash course in humanity, love reminding us that light, once ignited, holds within it the power to illuminate even the darkest of nights. "Together, we'll keep playing," I whispered softly, as the last note lingered in the air, shimmering in the echoes of our hearts, like a promise, a song that would never truly end.